Hey, so we're back after the summer, and I have recently done some work in the community, doing some outreach and chatting to women locally. And one of the kind of key areas that has come up that lots of women want to explore and are thinking about how they navigate is starting a family. So it is younger women wanting to understand more about what to expect. I mean, it's that classic, like based on the classic book, what to expect when you're expecting. And this is really relevant to, the work that I'm talking about around patriarchy. And specifically, it relates back to my book, which is coming out next year, The Control Delusion. So the control delusion is really applicable to the process, the transition of becoming a mum. And that is because we never, we, there is so much that we don't know until we become mothers. And it is quite often, when I chat to other mums about it, it's this sense of it's like a kind of, without sounding too dramatic, it's almost like a conspiracy sort of, not theory, it's a conspiracy towards women to really warp the idea of what motherhood is like. Because if you actually knew what it was like, nobody in their right mind would do it. And I know that sounds overly dramatic, but the reality is that there is no societal value placed on the work of motherhood. And that is really, that's one aspect to it, which is quite hard to deal with, that you kind of go through this major life change. You have to spend all your waking hours focused on keeping this tiny being alive and safe and well and happy and engaged. That's a lot of pressure. um, and it's quite stressful. But it's also, it's difficult to comprehend how much your life changes when you have a child for those reasons, and that the work that you put in to doing all of that is seen as being your responsibility. That's just your duty. That's just what you should do. You chose to have a child, therefore you have to take responsibility and it's all on you, rather than, the real kind of phrase, which is doing the rounds a lot more now, about how it takes a village. And, I digress slightly, but there is a lot of evidence around how, as a human um, species, it's only in the last couple of thousand or so years where this kind of patriarchal model came in, and it kind of removed the emphasis of egalitarian tribal communities who looked after children together. It's kind of like what I come back to as that's a sort of natural state that is conducive to being able to keep a small human alive, rather than, the patriarchy going into overdrive post the Industrial Revolution. But that's a different book. I will come back to that. It is that the essence of what I'm talking about is you put in all this work. Sorry, there's cops outside. I don't know what's going on. Can you hear the dogs barking? Some sort of action. Anyway, I'll edit that out later. But um, it's the amount of work that you put in for nothing. On top of that, in terms of financial value or reward, on top of that, it is the the impact on your career, your identity, your future self, your pension prospects. It is really hard, and it is financially not the smart move. Like, I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you are not cool with the idea of spending thousands of pounds to entertain, feed, um, and generally support a small human, this is not for you. And I think it's a really important part of the process that more of us need to stop and go, it, you know, is this something I really want? Because there is a pressure on women to have an identity as a mother, and there's a huge tension around that. You know, women who don't have children for whatever reason, which is their business and nobody else's, will quite often kind of have to feel that they are defending their life choices. Whereas there's, you know, I'm not going to even bother making the comparison for men, because when men have children, they their wealth and their career prospects go up. If they don't have children, then they just have more money to spend. So it's completely incomparable. Women feel the pain of the pay gap, the gender pay gap, but also of the maternity penalty, which is real. And if you want to learn more about how it's real, I've got an article coming out later on today, which will give you all of the facts and stats on how real it actually is. So, there are friends, colleagues, coaches that I know who do kind of want to talk about really warning women and giving them the full heads up before they go down the path of motherhood, and say, you know, almost trying to put people off and saying, you know, this is going to be difficult. My outlook is slightly different. I'm a mum of two boys who are sort of becoming teenage years, and I have experienced the maternity penalty. Um, my career has been impacted by it. I've certainly seen my wealth and career prospects impacted by having children. But I don't feel that that should impact on me having children. I would do it all over again. I would do it all over again. Um, but it's not fair. It's not right. It's um, it's a really significant social and economic issue of our time, which no politician is really bothered about looking at. So then it becomes an individual problem, and that's my issue. It's not really, it shouldn't have to be an individual problem, it's a societal problem. Women have to, are, you know, we do have to, but there's also a perception that we must give up our lives to have our children. When we try to go back to work, and I hear this from women all the time, they often say to me, you know, I don't know if I'm imagining it, but I feel like they're trying to make it more difficult for me, or they're trying to put me off from coming back, or I've come back and suddenly I keep getting told about how such and such doesn't take a lunch break, and they just carry on, and that, you know, that's expected of everyone. Um, so it's that idea. This comes back to the control delusion, where you go into this thinking, I have protections, I have support, I have everything in order that I need to start a family. And then you find that you're vulnerable. And it varies from country to country. In the UK, what happened to me was that I applied to reduce my hours, work flexibly. I didn't think that would be a problem with my employer, and they just said no. There was no chance for any kind of recourse or appeal. There was no trial process. And this was a few years ago. You know, my kids are in their teens now. And I had no right to work flexibly or part time. I mean, it was a potential of going from 35 to 28 hours a week. And in the wake of COVID and people working remotely, it is sort of laughable that that was such a problem. That was like, either you come back full time or you don't come back at all. And so I didn't come back, but I didn't go back thinking that I wouldn't then face maternity discrimination trying to get another job. Ideally, it would have been helpful for me to find another job before I jumped, but I didn't know, and nobody told me. And I also didn't understand how little I had in terms of protections. Now, you don't have the right to reduce your hours or even flexible working when you have a baby. You can apply for it, but your employer can say no. And we know for sure that the majority of women who go back to work after having a baby feel that they have experienced some form of maternity discrimination. So, as I was told 15 years ago, almost 15 years, the law has no teeth. Now, maybe it has a tiny bit more bite because in the UK, the process has become more transparent. But at the end of the day, if they don't want you back, they they don't have to take you. If you want any sort of um, like changes to your contract or anything that would be helpful, they don't have to do that. And I think that's the bottom line of what you have to be aware of when you go into this, that it's important to know your rights, it's important to know where the line is, but you can arm yourself, you can forearm yourself with knowledge. And there are lots of organisations that are out there that will support you. Firstly, there's Pregnant and Then Screwed, who are, their name alone demonstrates how phenomenal they are. And they provide lots of support. They also do campaigning. They will help you out. And ACAS. So in the UK, you can look to ACAS to look at what your rights are and how you can navigate things better. Because at the end of the day, it should be about mindful employers trying to navigate and collaborate with returning members of staff, not they're clearly trying to find a way to like nudge you out. Know your rights, know your support networks, reach out to other mums, reach out to other women in your company, in your networks, find out what's going on for them. Look at options, how you could do things. If you can even look at things like job shares or ways that you can work around all of the crap that's going to get thrown at you, think about how you can navigate it. The other thing, which is really important to this, is whilst you know your rights, know how the law works, know what you're entitled to, and get the support, it's also important to think about what is right for you and to stick with that, because you can end up being pressured into returning before you're ready. You can be pressured into worrying that you can't have another child or you might do it too soon. Forget all of that, because at the end of the day, when you look back in 10, 15, 20 years, none of that will matter. What matters is how you build the foundation for your family, and worrying about all of this rubbish, it's not worth it. Honestly, it's not worth it. What you need to do above anything is put yourself first and be guided by it, because that is really modeling that behavior to your child from an early age, but it's also keeping you alive so you can therefore take care of that baby. I mean, it's a win-win, but it's not necessarily where your mind will go when you're worried about how you'll pay the mortgage, how you'll keep a small human alive, and maybe things like maintain a relationship with your partner, just to throw in there as well. So if this is something that you're going through, if this has happened to you, if you've got your own experiences that you want to share, if there's anything else you want to add, feel free to reply in the comments and subscribe if you are interested in hearing any more about this, and feel free to kind of start a conversation. All right, let's talk more.